2009. Ms. Bowen's focus is on strategic planning, master facility planning, service line development, physician practice development, recruitment and retention of primary care providers. Ms. Berry Bowen is a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives and has been an active leader in state and local health initiatives and community organizations. She holds a master's degree in nursing and a master's degree in business. Please welcome her and the coworkers she has brought along with her.
Thank you so much. Well, good morning. How's everybody this morning? Good. You ready to hear about a lot of medical professions? Yeah. Well, as mentioned, I'm Jill Berry Bowen. I'm the CEO of Northwestern Medical Center. I've been here for almost 7 years, and it's been really exciting opportunity for me to get to know the community and to really work with a hospital and a great team. And I didn't come alone today. I came along with a team because my job really is about creating a right environment in which people can grow and learn and develop great programs and provide exceptional care for our community. So what we're going to do over the next several minutes, that each one of us are going to take about 3 to 4 minutes and talk about what we do, and so explain our work, and then have an opportunity for you to ask us questions. Because one of the questions that was given to me was how many medical professions are there? And I'm thinking, I can't possibly even guess. There are so many, and you think about doctors and nurses, and I am a nurse, and when you think about the question you gave about how did I get here, nursing got me here. Nursing, to become a nurse, and then to figure out, oh my gosh, to be a nurse, there's so many different opportunities to grow and learn, and the doors just opened. So when you start thinking about what you want to do, because I'm very partial to the medical profession, but it's not just doctors and nurses. You're going to hear from other folks that have other backgrounds that you would think, well, that's not a medical profession. But ultimately, a hospital, we are a business. So you need all different types of people in the medical profession. So my background in nursing, I started off with a 2-year degree, because I really wasn't sure. And then I ultimately got my master's degree in nursing because my history is I've been a chief nursing officer at a hospital, overseeing all of nursing and clinical services. And then I had the opportunity. So when I think about my background in nursing, and also I have my master's in business. And so those came together. And then the other thing, besides being a nurse, is having someone that believes in you. Having a good mentor, someone that you can talk to, someone that sees your potential, and they say, hey, what about if you try this? And so the most important thing is being willing to take a risk. Yeah, I'll try it. What's the worst that can happen? And so this is what's happened to me. I never thought I was going to be a CEO of a hospital. But the doors opened, someone asked me questions, brought me along, took me under their wing, and said, hey, what about this? And there's not too many CEOs that are women. So for both the young men and women in this room, anything's possible. So anybody can be a CEO if that's what you're passionate about, and that's where the door is open and you gain that interest. So as already mentioned, my work involves strategic planning. I have an incredible team, so my job is like, where are we going to be in the future? What's healthcare going to look like? So I work locally, and I work in Montpelier with regulators, our local legislators, the governor, to talk about where is healthcare going in Vermont. So that's my role, because operationally, folks are here at the hospital taking great care of patients and budgets and all sorts of different things. And my job also is to recruit and retain top talent that you're going to see here, the best talent at Northwestern Medical Center is going to speak to you today. And also, how do I keep them? How do I keep them in an environment that's fun to work in, and it's interesting, and they can grow and learn? So those are some of my biggest challenges. So my 3 to 4 minutes is up. And so I would like to welcome, and they're going to introduce themselves, but just so you know who's coming, David Gervais, why don't you come next?
Hi, everyone. I have not been in a junior high since I was in junior high, and I love it. I think it's great. How many of you here are interested in science?
Yes.
How many of you think you're passionate about it? Oh, well, we're getting there. So you have some choices to make. My name is David Gervais. I'm the Director of Diagnostic Imaging, or Radiology, at Northwestern Medical Center. My original training, I have a bachelor's degree in nuclear medicine technology from the University of Vermont. Nuclear medicine is a subsection of radiology, just like X-ray or CAT scan is. How many of you guys have had an X-ray or CAT scan? A lot of people have, right? So I oversee the department in the hospital that has all of those subsections, and I've been doing that since 2013. I've been a trained technologist since 1998. How many of you were alive in 1998? 0. So I've been doing this for over 15 years. Recently given the opportunity, like Jill was mentioning, had some mentoring, given the opportunity to take on something new by managing a department. Something that I had done a little bit of previously, and that I was given the opportunity to manage a much larger department. I'm very passionate about what I do. I've learned so much since taking this position, not only about the clinical side of things, but as my friend Devin, as when he comes up, the management side of things, how to put together budgets and manage your budgets and managing personnel and doing things like that. If you're passionate in science, I highly recommend that you look at medical imaging. It's a broad scope. That includes X-ray, CAT scan, ultrasound, MRI, echocardiography. I mean, I can't name them all, but there's a lot out there for you guys to do. You don't have to be a doctor or a nurse. You can look at medical imaging as a profession, and there's doors that will open for you regardless of what you choose to do.
Great, thank you, David.
Good morning, everyone. I wasn't expecting the snow. My name is Angel, and I'm a certified ophthalmic assistant. I work for Dr. Brophy, and he's an ophthalmologist. That's a medical eye doctor. You can become a certified ophthalmic assistant a couple of ways. You can go ahead and go to college and get your associate's degree, and then continue on for another year for your certificate. Or you can train under an ophthalmologist for a year and then set for your exam. With this particular job, you do need to have your continuing educational credits to recertify every 3 years. As an assistant, my job is to get the patient ready for the doctor. So first I would gather all pertinent information, like why is the patient there today, if they're having any vision problems, any issues with their eyes. And then I would go ahead and collect their medical history, their family history, and any medications they may be taking or any drug allergies they have. And then I would start my exam by checking their vision with an eye chart. You probably all know what that is. And verify their glasses prescription, and then go ahead and do a slit lamp exam. And a slit lamp is like a microscope to look into the eyes. And I brought an eye model with me here today. The eye is basically made up of 3 parts: the front, the middle chamber, and then the back of the eye. Does anybody know where the iris is? Or what the iris is?
It's the bit of color.
Yes, exactly. So that's the pretty colored part of the eye. That's the iris. And right in the center of that, there's a little black dot. That's the pupil. So the next part of the exam would be to go ahead and give the patient drops, to check their eye pressure, and to go ahead and get that pupil dilating. Does anybody know what dilating means?
I think it's where they kind of like blur your vision, right?
Yes, exactly. It blurs your vision. It opens up the pupil really big and wide so that the doctor can see from the front of the eye way to the back of the eye. Some other of a certified ophthalmic assistant would be to assist the doctor during surgeries and lasers and procedures. There's many kinds. You also help educate the patient with ongoing tips for better eye health. If you love working closely with people, this is the career for you. Personally, it gives me a sense of great satisfaction helping others. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment that the kids know about my stupid eye injury, and that if it wasn't for Dr. Brophy in his office, then I would have lost all my sight. He saw me every day. That's Saturdays and Sundays for like 2 weeks. The guy's a magician. And just to let you know that we have a good doctor, probably better doctors here than anywhere else, including Burlington. So I just thank you because you have a great office.
That's the truth. I think the same thing.
Yeah.
Great doctors. Well, thank you for letting me tell you about my career today.
Hi everyone, my name is Devin Batchelder. I've been with the hospital nearly 10 years, and I have zero clinical background. So I graduated from college with a degree in finance and business administration, and found a job in the business office at the hospital quite some time ago. In the finance department, we have kind of a wide range of people. We have basic functions of paying our bills, paying payroll, recording debits and credits, and it may not sound terribly interesting to a lot of you, and quite frankly, it wasn't terribly interesting to me at first. I needed to learn those skills, and I did for a couple of years, but then, like Jill talked about, we had that organization that's focused on learning, and so I picked out those paths within the job that I really enjoyed and decided to keep on learning. And learned things about statistics and ways to analyze data, a little bit of computer programming. We do some of that, and learned about databases and how to manage large amounts of data. So that was kind of my way to progress up and move out of the accounting and into this world of decision support and budgeting, which is our forecasting. So we're working with managers to prepare their budgets, look out 5 years for our budgets, analyze new programs, new pieces of equipment to see if they make sense financially to do, and then tracking a lot of different metrics throughout the hospital, even comparing physicians. So we get into the clinical world. So I have learned about the clinical things since then. We'll compare physicians who treat patients with the same diagnosis and see if they treat them the same way, if they're ordering the same tests, using the same supplies, to just increase our consistency in care and efficiency with costs and operations. So that's what I do.
Thanks,
How many of you guys like to cook? How many of you like food? I'm Carrie Constantino. I'm the executive chef for Northwestern Medical Center's Restaurant and Catering Department. I started working in restaurants when I was about, probably your age, just doing dishes a couple hours, no child labor laws were broken. And then when I graduated from high school, I took a year to work in a restaurant to see if that's what I really wanted to do. I continued my education with Southern New Hampshire University in Manchester, New Hampshire, with their culinary program. I have my associate's degree of applied science with a concentration in baking. So I did, we learned the food side, but my second year of school was focused on baking and pastries. I haven't, since I've been out of school, done a lot of baking. I had one position that I did that, but the rest has been restaurants. I've been at the hospital for 2.5 years. I started there as the sous chef, which means second to the executive chef. And in November took over this role. I lead the kitchen of I think we have about 18 employees. We do everything. We feed the patients, we feed the employees, we feed Meals on Wheels. We do a lot of food. It's a lot of fun. It's hard work, but it's good work. So if you're interested in physically demanding job that's constantly changing. It's never a dull moment. There's always something new to do, something new to learn, lots of fun things to try. You might want to look into it. I chose working at the hospital because I've done my time in restaurants, and it's very good with family life, and just the schedule is great, and the people are great to work with. Like I said, we have a lot of fun. Anybody have any questions?
Do you have nutritional requirements you have to be conscious of?
I do have to know a little bit about the diets and the patient's needs. I don't have my dietitian's license or anything like that, but I do have to understand, what diabetics can eat and what they can't eat. If somebody has something else going on, what they can't eat, as well as my staff. They have to know the different dietary needs.
So it sounds like it's a team effort between
Oh, yeah.
your department and the
Yep, we work,
dietitians?
I have no clinical background, but we do work a lot with the nurses, directly with them, and dietitians as well, so.
Carrie's team directly affects even diagnostic tests
Yes.
because there are certain tests, just as an example, where a patient can't have any caffeine whatsoever in order to have one of my tests. And it's so critical that there's that communication between restaurant catering and diagnostic imaging and also the nursing staff on the floor. Really, it's a one team. We're all working towards the same goal, which is exceptional patient care.
Yeah, and I think that's important for everybody to know that we're different departments, but we touch everybody. Like everybody touches everybody, so it's communication throughout everything. Anything else? Thank you.
My name's Kate Laddison, and I am a community relations specialist. I have some samples of things for you guys to pass around, some examples of the kind of work that we do. If you would just take a look and pass them around. As a community relations specialist, I've been at the hospital for 4 years, and I got my degree in communications with a print journalism specialty. I worked in newspapers, magazines, all around Vermont, and then started the hospital about 4 years ago, like I said. I like to say that I actually have the best job in the hospital. Don't tell Jill, though. And I say that because I know, she thinks it's her job, but it's actually my job. You know why? Because my job is actually to be the storyteller for the hospital. So anything that is cool or exciting or interesting, it's my job to tell that story to you guys. So I help connect the community with the hospital. So things like being here today to share all this awesome information and these terrific people, that connection is partly my job. It's also my job to write up these newsletters, produce these pieces, and if you probably will see somebody that you recognize in some of those pieces. When you see him, raise your hand and you can tell me who it is. Who is it?
Mr. D.
Wow! He's on the cover of one of those, right? So that, somebody else? Who? Show me. It's Biggie on the back, right? So those are just examples of how the publications that we put out help tell the community about the care that we provide to your friends and neighbors and family, and to tell you all the awesome things that are going on. So I work on newsletters, I take pictures, you saw me with a camera, I go to events, I listen to what's happening at the hospital, and then I translate it into something that you guys will care about. I also like to say, if writing is your passion, or that kind of storytelling, or that kind of communicating, that type of job exists in lots of professions, but also in a hospital. You might not think that there are writers and photographers at a hospital, but there certainly are. We use all kinds of channels, printed ones. I handed out some printed materials, but we also use social media. How many people are on Facebook? That's it?
I'm surprised.
Whoa. How many? Snapchat?
Oh.
Yeah. What else? What's your favorite social media? Instagram? Let's see it. Hands up. Yeah. Those are today's storytelling tools, right? I get to do Facebook for a living, okay? It's part of my job. So if you want to do that, you have to think about those tools that you love, those stories that you love. How can you make those work for you? So that's just a very quick something about what I do. I want to say thank you very much for inviting us all to be here and to share with you. I know that we want to get to some questions and answers because you probably have those. So does anybody have questions for me about community relations? Come on, if I don't get one, Jill will think I did a bad job. Give me one question. Oh, thank goodness.
So how often does the social media networks involve in your job?
I pretty much use them every day. If I'm not making at least one post a day, I'm probably not keeping up. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I should do it more.
What are some of the biggest challenges that have to do with your job?
One of the challenges can be patient privacy with storytelling. So you have a really important right to privacy when you come in and you get care at NMC. So when I did that story on Mr. G that he's on the cover for, I had to make sure that he was okay telling people about the kind of care that he delivered before we can tell it. Patient care can be a very sensitive thing. Lots of times people come to us and they have great outcomes. Sometimes people come to us for reasons that are sad, and we have to be really respectful of how we tell those stories. They're still important stories to tell, but you have to be careful about how you tell them. Awesome, I got 2 questions.
All right, well, you have a team of folks up here that are open to your questions. Come on over. And so we want to answer anything that you have about the medical and not so medical profession that exists inside the hospital. Or maybe professions that aren't represented here that we can speak to as well. Yes?
There's a lot of building going on up at the NMC campus. Can you tell us what's going on?
Yes, how long do we have? So talk about media, we're going to be providing great communication on all methods of media in order to keep the community up to date. So we're going to, first off, what you have seen is we've moved a whole road over, the Crest Road, so that we can have better access to our patients for parking and access to the front door. So now the state has approved us to move forward with a $32 million renovation and expansion. So this tells us that the state is investing in us, wants our community to have access to great health care for the long haul. So when you think about going to a hospital, you think about being an inpatient, usually. I mean, you think about a hospital, you gotta go to the hospital. And we are, 80% of our work is outpatient. You might come to the emergency department, you might have a surgery. Most surgeries now are even, you come in and you go home in the same day, or you have various tests that you go in and out pretty quickly. So our goal is to update our facilities so that we can be more nimble and flexible to the outpatient world and outpatient services. So we are going to, right off the bat, so sometime either April or May, we're trying to go through the final permitting process, is that we're going to have a groundbreaking. And soon as that happens, so we'll say May, when May hits, you know, the big trucks are going to come and they're going to push our road that goes out behind the hospital, they're gonna push it back. And we're also going to move our front door. Does everybody know where the front door of the hospital is? Have you been there? Yeah? Good. That front door is going to be relocated for several months. So we need to make sure the community knows that. And so we're gonna switch it over to where the education center is, so that we can revamp the front door as you come in, and that you can register right there at the front door versus having to go down the hallway. So we wanna bring the services right to the front door. And then also, we're going to turn our inpatient beds, because has anybody been on the inpatient unit, visited someone who's in the bed at the hospital? Yeah? So were there 2 patients in the room? Yeah. So there wasn't a lot of privacy, speaking of privacy. So we're going to make all of those rooms into private rooms, and we're going to add on to the building so that we can have 34 private rooms. So you and your family will have privacy for the care of your loved one. So that's a big deal. We're also going to add on to the hospital, so if you're standing at the front door, we're going to add a building enlargement onto the existing hospital so that we can have medical clinics come in. Right now, we have cardiologists come in, we have a pulmonologist come in a clinic fashion. They're there either full-time or part-time. We want to bring other specialists in because maybe we don't need them full-time, but but we need them there once a week or twice a month. So we're gonna have rotating clinics. So if you're a diabetic, you can come see your endocrinologist, so you don't have to travel to see it. We're going to bring those specialists here. Or using technology, you can sit in front of a big TV screen and have a physician somewhere else, and you can be sitting there and they can diagnose and treat you. And so we'll have a place to go where you can still feel like a clinic, but you may be seeing a physician that's in another state possibly. Most likely it's Burlington, but. In addition to that, we will have a connector and a medical office building. So it's a sign of expansion. Our population is aging, so we're going to have more space for orthopedics because we want to stay active, us baby boomers and those to come. And also bringing primary care. So does everybody have a pediatrician? You go see a doctor? Yeah? It's important that you have a doctor that follows you through your life, pediatrician onto a family doctor. So we're gonna have more room for family doctors in that building right up front on the campus, so you don't have to go to the back of the campus. And also urgent care. When your doctor is not available and you don't need to go to the emergency department because it's not that serious, but you need to be seen, we wanna see that right on the campus at the front door. So those are the big elements of what we're going to do. And it's going to take us 18 months. So as soon as the shovel goes in the ground, it's gonna be about 1.5 years of a little confusion. That's why we have wonderful Kate, who's gonna tell us how we get into the hospital and how we move about the campus easily, so we can continue care. So thanks for that question. A lot of exciting things happening on our campus. All to serve the community, to meet the community's needs. Yes?
What kind of work do you have for volunteers, like for high schoolers? Or volunteer work, I guess.
Yeah, we have, I'm trying to think, do you have volunteers in your department?
I don't.
Volunteers, Carrie?
Yep, a lot of them. There's a very large volunteer population at the hospital. We have, in my department, we have quite a few, I'm not sure the actual number. We have some that run our cafe in the morning, so they use the cash register and people pay and they take care of that. They make coffee, things like that. We also have another couple of people that work in the morning with our Meals on Wheels program. They help package that food up. And then in the afternoon as well, they do the cold part that goes with Meals on Wheels. So we have quite a few in our department. Nobody else.
One of my first experiences with a hospital was me being a volunteer. Back then we called them candy stripers, but it's a good way because we wore red and white uniforms.
We don't make you do that.
No. You guys get nice blue vests and the ladies get nice blue smocks, but it's an excellent way for young folks. I was in the Medical Explorers at the time when I was still in high school, or excuse me, early high school, freshman year, and it gave me a chance to be exposed to the medical environment by interacting with patients at some times and also visitors, but also just seeing what folks do on the nursing floor or in the medical laboratory or things like that. So it's an excellent way to get your feet wet.
You know, I know a man that's at the hospital volunteering, and he actually takes things from like the emergency department to the lab, and just like takes things to different places, like a little internal courier, for example. So there's various things that can be done. I don't know if you've seen any volunteers or anyone else seen them, but really the most important thing is if you're interested in volunteering, we would love to have you. We would absolutely love to have you because we love having youth come in. It gives us a lot of good energy, but it's important to tell the volunteer supervisor what things that you like and what things you would like to explore. And we try to match up your interests with available, so if something may not even exist and you think of something you want to do, we'll try to match you up to what your interests are so you get to learn a little bit more. We also do job shadowing as well. So if you have an interest in a particular job, you want to shadow one of us or somebody else, we'd be happy to have you do that as well. And that might be, say, oh, well, I'd like to, volunteer this summer in this particular department. I have an interest in it. And we'll see what we can do for you. Because it's really more about what you're interested in and what you'd like to try. And once you get in there, you may say, oh, I want to try that, or I want to try that. That's interesting to me. So it's we have 800 employees at the hospital. So there's a lot of opportunity to to shadow and learn different things that are
And
possible.
if you're interested, the form to get the volunteer process started is on the website. You can go, you can fill it out and send it in electronically.
What else are you curious about? Yes.
What are some of the challenges you guys face in Montpelier?
Ooh, in Montpelier. Well, where do we start? No, actually, we have really great people working in Montpelier. Our local legislators, our governor, the Green Mountain Care Board that is appointed by the governor to regulate hospitals and insurance companies and our big project, for example. So it's just really important to keep the communication lines open and be willing to have those constructive conversations to talk about the most challenging things. But right now, I guess the most challenging thing is the state of Vermont, as well as the nation, is really looking at how we're going to provide health care differently. And with that, quickly said, we get paid right now, generally speaking. Every time someone comes in, we get paid for it. You know, it's like if you go to the store and you buy something, you pay for it. Each time there's a charge. So now what the government, or Montpelier and the federal government, is wanting to take care and putting it in a package, so to speak. So if you come for orthopedic care, you get one amount of money to pay for all of the pieces of that care, not every little piece. So we're trying to figure out, instead of getting paid for how much we do, is how well we do it, which is actually a good thing. Because when you come to the hospital, you not only want to show up and see somebody, you want to make sure it's the best care. And that hospitals and physicians and everybody who provides care is focused on how good we do, so that there's low infection rates and that you don't have to stay longer than you need to. So it's so the challenges for us is how to move forward in a different way to deliver care. And we're focusing not so much on your sickness, but we need to be focusing on wellness. And how many of you are familiar with Rise Vermont? Oh, I love you already. So hospitals don't usually get involved in stuff like Rise Vermont. That's wellness. Hospitals are usually you go where you're sick or ill or you've got an injury. So now hospitals are focusing on how are we going to keep you well. So the hospital is partnering with the community, and actually Joan Cavello is on our committee, and and we're all working on how do we keep you well so that you're drinking water every day, that you're eating well, that you're exercising, you're sleeping well. And when you think about that, you learn better, in your classrooms, you have more energy, and even in the workforce, it allows you to show up for work, be ready for work, and be a good, productive contributor, to your work. So the challenge is how we transition from sick care to well care and how we get paid so differently. So how do we survive long term with this new payment model? Does that make sense? A little bit crazy, but keeps us on our toes. It was a great question though. All right, what else is on your minds? About anything? Yes?
Over the next couple of days, we've got Matt Dunn coming in and Bruce Linsman. What questions should we ask them with regard to the hospital?
So our administrative leaders or candidates, I would ask them what they want hospitals to look like in the future, because the way the payments are going, it's suggesting, we have 14 hospitals in the state of Vermont, it's suggesting that maybe we'll have less hospitals. And so maybe ask them, what their vision is for healthcare delivery, and specifically what they want the healthcare delivery system to look like in this community. Do they want everybody going to Burlington ultimately for care? Probably not. But what ideas do they have to reduce the cost of healthcare, but yet ensure that we're still able to provide care to everybody who comes through the door. So the other thing about this is that they want to pay us one amount of money, total, and that pays for everybody. So if we happen to have more people who are sick or need things, we still have that one amount of money, so that if more people come in, are we supposed to shut our doors when we've used up the money? Or, how are we going to handle that? And right now, they want us to handle that excess. So, what their vision is for how we're gonna pay hospitals in the future, how are we going to ensure that healthcare is going to be local.
That's good, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really about what their vision is and what they want the delivery system. We're feeling a lot of pressure. Now, hospitals are sort of the big giant in the healthcare delivery system, and just yesterday, the legislators, making a decision to take money from the hospitals and to help support the finances of home health. I mean, we want everybody to survive, by the way, in the community. We need home health, we need long-term care, we need mental health. We're a system of care. But at some point, hospitals are not going to be able to cover, and fund all these other things. And so how is the state going to fund all of these things that they want to do in the state for healthcare? So we're definitely, in a challenging situation right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody's so well-intended, but, the complexity of healthcare, it's not like running any other business. I haven't seen anything like it. I mean, even today, I don't know if I understand really all the finances, and I'm the CEO, but because it changes, things changing all the time, and the payment you don't get paid for everything, and you have to make it up elsewhere. So it's like a shuffle of how you're going to make the system all work. Very complex, exciting. It's fantastic, really. Yes.
With that continuous change in providing great care, how do you continue to make money as a business?
Yeah, that's our biggest challenge right now. And we do have a positive bottom line, but the bottom line is shrinking because the state's put a cap on how much money we can bring in. So think about running a business, or maybe your family runs a business, and they can only bring in so much money. So we have this cap. So underneath that, the only thing you can control is the cost. So working with the operations team, and it is budget season right now, it's always budget season, but it seems, but it's really right now, is that you have to look at your cost. So right now, we have to make sure that we're efficient. You might have heard of lean in manufacturing. What things can we do better and do it more effectively, more efficiently? So we're looking at leaning up our operation. At some point in time, we're probably going to be looking at what things we don't do anymore. Because we have to have a margin, because we want to pay and retain great people. We need to have the technology, so we have the latest and greatest if you're going to need a service. So it's really about taking cost out of the system, reducing cost. Hopefully not services, but maybe ways we can do things more efficiently. But I think at some point it will come to services. So reducing cost. So all of these operations folks and myself, not only looking at how much money we're bringing in, but also controlling our cost. It's just like you have so much money and you spend your money and you want to keep a little bit left over for a rainy day. Hospitals have to do that because we're a $100 million operation.
How do we stop free healthcare from being abused?
I don't know. I think, I can certainly, the team is here to respond to everything, but
What was the question?
he says, how do we prevent free care from being abused? So I think for the most part, people are, accessing healthcare because they have a need or they're asking for help. So I'm not sure it's really abuse, really, but I do understand the question, and we have more and more free care. The good news is that with the exchanges that have been put in place, more people have access to health insurance. But the issue is that folks are almost self-insured because of their high deductibles. So I think number one is about education. I think we need to do a better job. We assume folks know how to access healthcare, when to access healthcare. Primary care, everybody needs to have a primary care provider no matter their means to pay. And so how we connect folks to the system, I think, is powerfully important, and we can do a better job at that. And we're working not only as a hospital, but I care, or we care, who's in home health right now, who's in long-term care, who's in mental health, because we're gonna care for this community together. So we've been working in silos. So I think the thing we can do better is work as teams across our community so nobody falls through the cracks, that everybody has access to care and everybody understands access to care. And also we're educating folks on wellness and prevention, the kind of the Rise Vermont stuff, so they feel a part of it. And when someone shows up in the emergency department 6 times in a week, they're asking for help. So that may be abuse, but to me, it's a challenge to figure out how we get them connected to the right resources, that we're not doing the job that we need to do to get them well connected. So as a hospital, we're now paying for housing, we're paying for transportation, we're paying for food, because when people have a discharge, we can't just discharge them now. We need to make sure they have a home, they have transportation to get there, and they have food on the table. And that's what you just probably read about UVM Medical Center. Giving more money to folks that are looking in the social aspects of our life, because there are struggles in life that we all have and challenges. And I think we need to do a better job at understanding those challenges so people have a better opportunity to improve their wellness and their health. So I think this is a lot of things, but I do not blame the individual who is multiply accessing care. How do we figure out where they fit in the system, and how do we wrap around them? So, you know, I mean, there's probably some that maybe will continue to do that, but we've done a great job with our team in helping people through case management. So we have nurses in not only just providing bedside care, we have nurses helping people find a house. So when they leave, they have housing or they have transportation. It's called case management, and connecting the dots for people so that they don't fall through the cracks. So, I don't know, any other thoughts in regards? I'm pretty passionate about making sure everybody has access to care and continuing to do a better job to make sure that they do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Just underline your thoughts on education. Really, it's about what is the appropriate type of care for you to access for what's wrong with you. You know, if you stub your toe, is it appropriate to go to the emergency department? Probably not. But our urgent care would be more than willing to take care of you very quickly. You can get x-rays there, you can get everything you need in that one-stop shop, rather than accessing the emergency department where somebody who's truly having a heart attack really needs those services.
You know, the challenging thing is you have folks coming, candidates coming, is, you know, I talked about the complexity of healthcare, and I just think it's really important for folks. We are never going to stop access to care. So it doesn't matter who comes through their door, we're gonna provide them the right resources and the right attention. And I think it's, can be overwhelming until you actually are in that setting to really understand the resource intense situations that we must provide, and those come at a cost. And so I think it's hard to just cut hospitals until you understand the complexity of what we're dealing with, the challenges that people have that are beyond what they're coming in for in the moment. There's so much more that they come with, and we're taking the time to figure that out. We can't put a cost on that, but it's going to be challenging to us as the pressures of reducing cost of care or payments to hospitals. It's going to potentially limit, but we're gonna try to continue to do the very best that we can for this community. What else?
You mentioned that there are 800 jobs at the hospital.
Yes.
And going along with what we're talking about now, how many of those are clinical medical jobs? Do you have an idea?
Well, the clinical stuff is probably going to be well over half of those jobs. I don't know. It looks like Devin. I don't have an HR person here, but it's the majority of them are clinical. But that being said, because we brought on a lot of physician practices, so we employ a lot of the physicians in the community now, and nurse practitioners and physicians assistants and their practices. So that's really increased. Those are mostly all clinical, except there is billers and receptionists. You know, part of that. I don't know, but it's well over half.
Half and half.
Yeah, it's well over half that are clinical. Just because of the growth that we've seen is largely bringing on physician practices, and those are mostly clinical.
In clinical, including nurses, doctors, but also technologists, MAs, medical
Absolutely.
assistants,
Yeah.
nurse aides, folks like that, that they all encompass the clinical staff.
Yeah, lab techs, respiratory therapists, physical therapists, it's largely clinical. But there's a lot of non-clinical, and that's why we wanted to bring some other folks here to, you always think of doctors and nurses and therapists and things, but there's so much more. There was a question right in here, yes.
How many different departments do you have at NMC?
Well, I know there's probably around 50 of them, I guess.
It's about 60 now.
About 60. Yes.
How many meals do you make a day?
Prepared for that question. A lot. I would say, so daily we do over 100 just for Meals on Wheels. Patients is generally about 30 patients 3 times a day. And gosh, our cafeteria for employees and other people that come in is we do about 200 for lunch just for the hot food, so that doesn't count our salad bar and our sandwich bar. So a lot.
So probably over 500.
Yeah, a day.
It's not your average hospital.
Yeah, and that doesn't, if we have special events as well, we do board of directors every month. We have just different catering things going on, daily catering things, so yeah, I would say it's over 500 meals put out a day.
And it's great because Carrie and her team will not only do the cafe and, daily meal service, but on holidays, they're there after hours feeding night staff, doing big banquet type dinners. We've got Jill feeding us and serving us food along with the other leadership team members, which is, it's a guilty pleasure.
So if you're thinking about, in the culinary arts, because Carrie is quite humble as far as what they do. So you think about the cafeteria line and the trays that go to the patients. And by the way, there is like a restaurant-style menu that folks get to choose from. So it's not just sort of the meal of the day. So it is room service. It's really cool. The other thing is, though, the cakes, the desserts, she mentioned she's a baker. The creative stuff that is coming out of that, we just had a reception for the community. And it was really over the top in what type of interesting things that they prepared. So it was really cool, creative, fun stuff, and delicious too.
Do a lot of people from the culinary and medical part of the tech center from BFA work at the hospital?
Not culinary-wise, no.
I have a lot of BFA Technical Center folks come and shadow and diagnostic imaging for sure.
We have had, people that have come in, we haven't had a student in a while, but we were getting occasionally a couple that would come in for a few weeks or whatever, a couple hours at a time, but not recently.
Yes.
So throughout the period, I've noticed all of you shared laughs a lot. Can you talk to us a little bit about the teamwork aspect of your jobs?
Who wants to talk about teamwork?
I like to talk, so I'll say it. No, I look at Devin because, like I said when I was introducing myself, I started out as a very clinically oriented person. I was a technologist by training, and that's what I did, is I took care of people. I was an EMT for 14 years. That was what I did, is I took care of people. And I'm good at that. I'm not afraid to say it. But when I took the management position, I had to learn more about the administrative side. And the big thing was budget. And Devin has helped me, I can't tell you how many times, just understanding what is an expense line and why do I have to do this particular calculation and what is a pro forma for a piece of equipment that I want to purchase and why is that valuable and why is that important in today's environment. So we really try to help, and I've offered to show him the clinical side of things. He doesn't want to, he's a little squeamish, so. No, it's definitely teamwork across the organization, and I mentioned an earlier example with restaurant catering and some of my exams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're working with other departments every single day. I didn't know anything about clinical. I had to understand what they're doing to figure out how to put their budget together. So, it's really all the time. We're just running into each other in the hallway, asking questions, and it's a very important part of it. That's sort of the administrative side of things. I know the clinical side has a whole other level of teamwork.
Anybody see our pink glove dance video?
Yes.
One person, 2 people. That was teamwork at its
Yeah.
best across the organization. Kate Laddison helped everybody. There was so many people. But we all gathered on the front lawn. There was how many of us on the front lawn? How many?
A couple hundred.
A couple hundred people, all working in unison with a drone flying over us, dancing for breast cancer awareness. So we really do know how to come together as a team.
You know, we have some major initiatives going on, and so no one person is responsible for it. And even when I was invited to come here, I just felt that you need to hear from the team members that really orchestrate and execute on the priorities that we set, because I can come and tell you about my job, but this is the real work is done by folks just that like you're seeing here, because everything is so interconnected that we have to work together to make sure we're wrapping around the patients and wrapping around good systems so it flows well. We don't work in silos, we work connected, you know, as one team. And when I do the orientation for new employees, I talk about, I know I'm a broken record, but it's about being one team. No matter where that patient or that interaction is, we all care about it because it makes a difference in the outcome for that patient, so. Teamwork is essential.
Add to that too, we also do every year a Walk in My Shoes Day, which I participated in last year. I went into David's diagnostic imaging for half of the day, and like those are fun things we get to do. It's just, I think Jill you came into our department a couple years ago, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really great to be able to go into somebody else's department and find out what they're doing. It gave me a better understanding of what they do. So that helps, I think, with team building too, to go in and figure out, oh wow, this is what they do, or I learned a ton of stuff that I didn't know they did in there. So it's things like that are really great that we get to be a part of that and do that in our working environment.
As a community, we've lost several pediatricians lately. How has NMC helped fill that void? And just in terms of wellness, how often should 12, 13, and 14-year-olds see their pediatrician?
Oh boy. So pediatrics, so Northwestern Pediatrics. So most of you are probably familiar with Mousetrap Pediatrics. So unfortunately, we did lose some physicians left for various reasons. It is an interest, if you're a private, working in your office privately, it is challenging because the reimbursement is changing. As it's changing for a hospital, it's changing for individual physicians if they have their own practice. And so it's been challenging as they've seen their reimbursement go down. So as a hospital, we recognize how important that pediatricians are in our community. So we actually scooped that practice up, and we now employ the pediatricians under Northwestern Pediatrics. We have a new pediatrician coming, Jen Covino, this fall, and we're planning on hiring 1 or 2 other physicians. Dr. Laura Bellstrom, you might have had her as your pediatrician. She closed her practice. We're happy to say she's working 1.5 days at Northwestern Pediatrics. So we didn't totally lose her, but she certainly decreased her hours, and who knows, in the next several months, hopefully, we'll kind of win her back a little bit, even a few more hours. So we recovered in that we kept the practice and employed, but we are certainly working extremely hard to hire more pediatricians for this community. We definitely need 1 more in addition to Jen Covino, and we might possibly do two more. So it's hard, to find physicians and the right physicians or nurse practitioners or advanced practice providers. So we do have interviews, but it takes a long time, almost a year, to recruit a physician. So it's a challenging. So you asked about how often to see your pediatrician. I'm not really the right one to answer that. You definitely should consult your family practice physician or your pediatrician to come up with a routine. But you definitely want to have your annual checks. I think that's really important. That's a routine that we all should be on, even at my age, to make sure I'm checking in with my family practitioner once a year. And then depending on what your situations are, then go follow that guideline from your pediatrician. That's really important. So definitely have a pediatrician, a doctor, and I would say at least a year, and then connect with that pediatrician. It may be more often than that, depending on your circumstance. So it's an individualized plan. But we all should have doctors, even though we feel so good. It keeps us well longer if we start with a doctor when we're well versus waiting to when we're sick. The doctor can help keep you well longer versus getting sick and having to backtrack a little bit. So it's important to make that connection. Even though we feel so good and strong, we don't need a doctor. It's just important to have those connections. Yes.
I guess I'm getting this overriding sense of community and caring just by listening to it all. From an employer aspect, and talking to a lot of the kids, some of them want to be nurses and doctors and go into the medical field. Somebody comes to you and looking for a job, and they want to work, let's say, at your hospital, but they also want to see the world as a nurse, or maybe want to be part of let's say, a teaching hospital. Because I didn't hear anybody talk about that. What do you say to them? Because they live here in the community, and maybe they want to be part of that community and caring aspect of it, but they want to go visiting nurses or teaching nurses or the traveling nurses. And I have a good friend who does that. Was part of a smaller hospital, and now he's working in Doha in Qatar, the American hospital there. And he's been there for 7 years because it's been the greatest job for him there. So what do you say to somebody who wants to be here but wants to see something else as well?
Sure, I think if you want to be a nurse or a clinician, it's really important to get grounded and get your skills really good. So you're going to want to be at a hospital, even a small community hospital like ours, for a couple of years to get your skills solid and ingrained. And then we do have a number of folks that want to work in the neonatal intensive care unit. We don't have one of those. So they might stay at our hospital, they might do extra work at UVM Medical Center or vice versa. So the most important thing is that you feel good about what you're doing, but get grounded in your skill. And then we also have folks that do travel, or they might take a leave of absence. We have a physician right now who took a leave of absence and is in Guam practicing medicine because he wanted to do something different, had been doing this for a while, and okay, sure. And so we make a decision that we'll hold your job depending on how long they're going to be gone, or we'll bring you back and you can be part-time and then work back up to your status. So we want you to be part of our organization, but we want you to have a fulfilling career. So I would say get grounded in your skills, work someplace for a couple of years to get really good at those clinical skills, and then see what you want to do. Work at UVM Medical Center or traveling. You want to make sure you fulfill your life fully, and you should try different things, is my motto. And then when people try different things, we find that they come back to their hometown and want to provide care to the community where they grew up and love. So spread your wings, get good at it, and you can go anywhere. So I guess, what do you think? I don't know. Is that the right answer?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked at UVM Medical Center. It was Fletcher Allen back then. I worked at a small cardiology office that had 3 offices in Vermont, and now I work at a small community hospital. And I have to say, this is probably the best job I've ever had. There's a certain feeling with this particular organization, at least. I'm not bragging.
So we'd like to thank all of you for coming. There's definitely a lot to learn, especially those of us that want to be in a medical profession when they grow up. And we'd like to give all of you honorary Team USA bracelets, and we'd like to put all of your pictures on our Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
Thank you so much.